Welcome and thank you for joining us on this webinar today regarding the role of wearable technology in managing musculoskeletal risk. My name is James Sharp and I'm the Chief Technical Officer here at RiskX. Today's webinar is a collaboration between RiskX and our strategic partner, Cardinus, who are specialists in ergonomics and managing musculoskeletal risks in the workplace. Our friends at Cardinus are partnered with Longitude 6 in building wearable technology into their 360-degree economic services. Today, we are delighted to welcome Mark Haseman, CEO of Longitude 6, as our main speaker for today's webinar. Longitude 6 develops solutions aimed at reducing the rates and cost of manual handling injuries, including MSDs and other common injury types. With a long track record of success in leadership positions, Mark specializes in helping companies analyze their unique workplace risks, building a ground-up understanding of how any organization functions and how its employees accomplish their goals. Before I hand over to Mark, I will spend just a few minutes introducing RiskX, our market leader health and safety software assessment, to you, as you may not be familiar with what we do. RiskX are the developers and deployers of AssessNet, our online health and safety management solution. AssessNet is essentially a group of core aspects in helping manage online health and safety management. And it's governed by core controls such as task management for action set of compliance, an employee portal which allows employees to access risk assessments and report incidents and hazards, near misses, reporting and dashboarding to get analytics off the back of your health and safety management system, and a document manager so you can share documents useful in things like ISO management to not only employees but internally as individual guidance. The system is set up as multiple modules, as you can see on screen. And with those modules, you can do them independently for compliance, such as understanding manual handling assessments or risk assessments or reporting incidents. At the same time, it's also a cohesive ecosystem, whereby the system itself and the assessments can be joined together to create a more compliant picture of a process or project. The great thing about AssessNet is it's completely modular, so it can be built to either budget or the level of compliance and priorities that you have with regards to your health and safety objectives. Underpinning that are four main areas: business intelligence with regards to our BI tool to provide enterprise level reporting across all of the modules and see for trends analysis; mobile applications for offline use of having it in handheld, of reporting incidents or undertaking audits whilst in basements with no internet technology, then synchronizing that back into our service and system. Language packs. Our system is completely multilingual, not just in the interface itself, but can also auto-translate the documentation itself that is created within the system. And lastly, our API services, connecting our system to a bigger ecosystem, such as your HR services and other third-party tools, so that you can get a full picture of compliance across all of those disciplines. That's all from me now. Before Mark takes the floor, Christian McKay from Cardinus will be introducing himself. Christian and his team will be happy to talk to any of you after the webinar about their services, how their services can help you reduce MSD-related risks. So over to you, Christian.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, hi, everybody. Yeah, I haven't got a presentation or anything like that to go through, but yeah, we are global world leaders when it comes to ergonomics, online risk assessment training, and along with that, lots of other health and safety courses as well. If anybody wants to know any more about that, please direct message me, or my details will be in the presentation. Just reach out to us and I'll be able to help in any way. But today, mainly my point was to introduce Mark. Mark, as we've been told already, is CEO of Longitude 6. Longitude 6 is a fantastic wearables product that really helps with manual handling risk, not just looking at the person, but looking at the job role as well. And as you will see, went through Mark's presentation, how easy and effective the solution is. And that's why we've partnered with them, because we saw a gap in what we're able to do. And Mark's solution is just fantastic. So, Mark, over to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. I need someone to let me know you can hear me all and see me all before I get going. But
yeah, we can definitely hear you.
Okay, good job. All right, so let me just. So can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can, Mark. Thank you.
Great. I'll just go into presentation mode. There we go. So, hi everyone. Thanks, Christian, for the introduction, and James also. Appreciate it. Normally when I'm presenting to people or talking to people, I know a little bit about their business. And obviously this is running blind, so I don't know how to context this to your needs, people listening and watching, but I'll try and make it a very general context and hopefully pick up on a general overview of what people have to deal with when you're thinking or considering technology in your business. And obviously throw questions, and if you do that, it's going to help me pivot around to sort of make sure I'm helping you a little bit more with what you're learning. Just very quickly about us, as Christian said, we're involved in technologies. We're a little bit different. We actually bring a number of technologies to organizations so that we can work out which ones would actually suit the organization best in analyzing their workplace or their people, or a combination of all, to design solutions. So we are a little bit different in that journey. We go and find the best technologies in the world, which gives us the ability to advise and help and support people, which is how we work with Cardinus predominantly. And it's all around musculoskeletal injury prevention or cost reduction in that zone. So that's who we are. Just to give you a bit of context, what we find, and you may have found that the people listening, we often hear that a different technology being used will, mystically give you a 30% reduction in injuries and costs. And for me, we always find that challenging, because you can use the most fun technology out there, or most powerful, but if you don't know what to do with the data, and the data doesn't work for you and your business, that's not necessarily going to translate. We also know that companies buy technology in an ad hoc way. So they'll buy some technology and then they'll drift to another product and drift to another product. And that does create issues around the money you've spent and the focus on the product. Some products are really hard to scale. Like if you've got a multi-site or multi-region or even a multi-country business, sometimes buying a technology expecting to get a global application or a fix is difficult. And then you need to have champions right across your business, so that makes it hard. Support, and that's our world. One, we provide support, but most importantly, we, probably similar to yourselves, if you did buy or do buy technology, we actually use technology day to day in projects. And our journey of getting support out of tech providers is a big learning for us. So that can be quite a challenge. And there's a lot of costs if you have to renew each year, buy hardware, train your people. How do you manage your data, and how do you manage your outputs? So while technology sounds fantastic, there are a lot of things to think about if you want to do something that will sustain and give you benefit. Otherwise, you are just setting yourself up for maybe a less than exciting output from what you wanted. There's so many technologies out there. Single sensor technologies, there's supposedly AI or camera technology or recognition technologies. There's wearables, there's exoskeletons, there's watches. We know that technology changes fast, really fast, and sometimes the message is really complex. We also know that that the benefits coming from it are not just the technology, it's actually what you do with the technology and what you do with the data. So they're the things that become the most important part of what you do in trying to understand what technology you might land with. What we have learned, and if you haven't journeyed down the tech path yet, and I've been quite nondescript about a specific technology deliberately for now, and I'll come to that. If you do go down the path of buying a technology, what we've learned is a couple of things. People do not like buying technology equipment, as in wearable technology or wearables. You buy them, but they become something you have to maintain or keep buying or replace, and they're a cost, or expensive iPads and so forth. So that becomes a barrier to, particularly across scale. Also, the need to have consistency. So if you're rolling a technology out over a number of sites, you need to have people that are equally able to use the technology and equally able to interpret and implement the findings. And that becomes quite complex depending how you approach that. But it can be done, and there's some groups doing it in incredible ways. And the biggest piece that we know is that the data that comes out quite often has to have some form of intervention to actually make sense for what you're trying to achieve. Because otherwise it won't be as dynamic as your workplace is and your environment. If you start trying to measure people are very different, and you'll have issues about how to get that technology to talk to your organization about what you need to know about your people, and likewise for jobs being different to the people. What we're starting to see, and what we would advocate strongly, there is no need to buy long-term contracts with technology. There are a lot of packages starting to come out now where you can buy assessment packages, where you can do short-term contracts, or you can do trials. I would absolutely advocate that, because the technology moves so quickly. It could be you buy something and literally 6 months later, it's not the thing to have. It would be good to have a technology that enables remote assessment. So do you need to have someone sitting in the room doing the assessment, or can people self-assess? Or can the environment be assessed without you being there, so to cut down on that resource or that skill? Is it workplace relevant? And this is a really big point. For the years I've been in this zone, I've been around, and I've actually worked for, and I've been involved in companies that have maybe a clinical product or a sport product, and then morphed it into workplace. They're not the same environments. We're talking about aging workforce. We're talking about people doing repetitive work 5 or 6 days a week, not like an athlete that taper and tailor their training and are built for and trained for their work. So we've got very different workplace, very different environments. And we do have issues about how to get people motivated. We have cultural issues. We have a lot of other stuff around that's not part of a clinical environment and not part of a sport environment. And technology has to fit into that. Otherwise, you're really going to dance a lot around how to get it to talk to you. And I talked before about equipment. So I think equipment's really important to really get your head around what is it you need to make this technology work. Just as a bit of a heads up, and this is how we approach it. It may not be the right approach for you, and it's certainly not the right approach for all of our clients, but we basically talk to our clients about the zones that technology could help in. We know that we can use technologies for pre-employment. We know that we can use them to analyze the job task risks and help onboard people depending on who they are. So we can bring people in who are 50 or 60 or whatever and have pre-existing conditions, and you can start to modify or adjust how they land in the business. Create programs around them being capable and able to do their work. You can do training. I'm not the greatest fan of training at all times, but you can do that. Injury management, how bad's the injury? What are you tracking your provider who might be providing rehabilitation? Are they actually succeeding in what they're doing? And then when they do come back to work, where do you put them consistent with their capability? If you measure people and you understand their functional health or their functional well-being, and then you measure jobs and you understand the job demand, and you use data to validate your thinking and your ideas, it's really powerful. And that's how we approach it. But many companies have a bend towards just pre-employment or just job change and so forth. But technology can sit in all those environments. Give you a snapshot of a handful of technologies, so to give you a sense of what you could expect from a different technology without advocating for any particular brand. And as Christian said, Cardinus are all over this, so they're people you can talk to, obviously. Wearable technologies, there's many of them. There's some that you apply to the skin, there's some that you wear a clip on your belt, some on your arm, and or some on your collar, and they measure things. There is a technology out there that we use. It has 5 sensors, and it's probably the most powerful ergonomic analysis or risk analysis product on the planet at the moment. It also gives you the ability to dive into what could be a solution and preempt what that solution could look like if you implemented it. So it's got a lot of predictive capability. But again, do you need to buy that technology? Maybe not. Maybe you can rent it. Maybe you could, depending on how you purchase it. We've got a client that doesn't buy it off us. They just literally, we rent it to them for 2 days at a time and train them. So you can be very, very flexible, and you should be flexible about how you take on technology. But wearable sensors, even now, still have a massive place to play in the analysis world, because they still give the best data. For a number of reasons. And I'll talk to those separately. AI computer, so this is the trend, and to be honest, some of the stuff is just simply amazing. But and you don't need to buy equipment, it's all done by camera vision, however you got that. Some products and some of particularly, you just upload a video that you might have taken. You could do a longitudinal review of someone's day, and then you could segment that into little particles and analyze that particle to get a full synopsis of that person's movement. Gaps, some technologies, when you lose a part of a person's arm or leg because they hide behind a bench or they go behind a cupboard, depending on the product, tries to throw algorithms in there or data in there to compensate for the loss of vision. Some make some allowance for that, and I can go into that more detail if you ask the questions. Some make more allowance for that by dropping that measurement element that they can't see, so it doesn't affect the overall score. Some actually see what it sees and actually creates a really bad score for that moment. So AI technology can only see what it sees, and that's no matter what people say. So but it's super powerful and super fast, and we've got some that we love using, but they have their restrictions. People, measuring people the traditional way, physiotherapy, sort of using people, sports scientists and so forth. You can actually look at people's functional capability by doing FMS or pre-employment or functional testing. If you were to add simple movements to that process, I'm going to try and kickstart this little video while I chat away. If you were able to add very simple movements to your pre-employment, for argument's sake, and you start to explore whether a person has functional health, and if not, what does that mean? You can get massive amounts of insight, and this product particularly can do remote assessments at home. People can be sent a link, test themselves, and you've got the data in your office literally immediately. But the beauty of the product like this, by measuring individual movements is one thing, but aggregating those movements to create a score is really important. What could that look like? Scoring for that could look like this, where you're looking at the movement scores. There's a lot of data behind these sort of technologies. It could move into where that person has issues. So you could target interventions about, do they need to see a clinician? Do they need to go on a fitness plan? Should they not do a certain job, or should they do a certain job? And you can start to look at their resilience to getting injuries. Can they work at low levels or high levels? Are they symmetric, and are they mobile? People will have these sort of scores or worse when they're getting older, but it's about placing them in the right job using some of the other technologies. So there's an example of technologies, and there are many more that we use, but they're sort of maybe the core three that we use when we're analysing, but you may also wish to explore those with someone. Fitness for work programs are the thing that people are starting to really dive into in our world, because they make ergonomic change and they do training, but ultimately it's about the well-being of their people, whether it's emotional or mental health or physical. And it's not putting them into gyms, and it's not doing any complex things. It's just how do you actually get engagement and getting them to look after themselves a little bit. So you can build really interesting fit for work programs and monitor people remotely. And then it's about how do you actually bring all this information into a way of being able to track what people are doing. So one of the products we have, we can actually send out exercises to someone. We can check how they're feeling, and that all goes back into a dashboard so we can communicate with them, and then we can re-engage. So that gives you a sense of technologies and applications. Then it's all about bringing it all together and how do you actually use the data, see the data, and monitor trends. So the beauty of this is I can have 10 different people measuring someone or people, and I don't have to fear it being an interpretive assessment. It can be data, and then we can make decisions, or you can make decisions from a centralized location, or better still, you can actually be watching what people are doing and improving or regressing in what they do. Just to go through again, because I think it's really important in the sense of being able to make a good choice when you're buying technology or using it. Do small purchases initially. There is no need to go and pay for big contracts, and get short-term agreements. Most companies should, or they should give you the opportunity to trial the product. But trialing it on your own is not good unless you've got people to help you, because you may not understand how to use the data optimally, which is really important. Really understand the support model they offer. Technology doesn't break too often nowadays. I'll say that. I've had trouble setting this up today. But technology doesn't break often. But if the support's not around, how to use the data, how to interpret, how do I train 5 new people, something's not making sense, or if the company's not evolving. If you lock in with a company and they're not getting better and they're not changing quickly, all those things are telltale signs that your journey will not be as optimal as you were hoping. We would believe at the moment to look at one technology as your go-to or your Hail Mary fix. We don't see that being the case. We will always be, unless something weird happens, we will always look at multiple technologies. That in itself is a job to deal with and think about, depending how you do that. But if you go back to my previous comments about small purchases, look at support, if you bring multiple technologies in, you should be able to manage that, depending on how you bring that into an information process. Be super clear on what you want to achieve. Why are you getting the technology? If you're monitoring your workers to make sure they're adhering to certain protocols, is your culture enabling that? Do your workforce want that? And we've all got wonderful tales of where that works well and wonderful tales where it works not so well. But it's really important to get that aligned to your business. And build a systems approach to implementation. And there's so many stories. We've got some clients that have just gone to another level with implementation now. They've got ergo champions that are not ergonomists. They're people in the business that want to and care. They have weekly sprint meetings to look at data, very quick half-hour meetings, and their approach to the implementation has been superb. We've got other clients that have just bought tech, it's in the cupboard, and excuse me, and we struggle to find out if they're even using it. Have a drink. So they're the really important pieces to work on. So that's my presentation. just under half an hour. So that allows for some questions. I'm really open to any questions at all, and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mark. Really insightful presentation. So thank you very much for that. Now, whilst Mark has been presenting, we've been monitoring the questions. Christian, have the questions been raised that you can?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. First one, Mark, how do you protect the worker data and privacy? And linked to that, are you storing data in the cloud or somewhere else? And is data encrypted and secured? So there's 3 questions all rolled into one for you.
Thank you. I'm old and it's late at night, so I'll try and remember all this. So look, managing human beings' data or people's data is obviously the biggest issue going around at the moment, as we all know. When we look at a different technology to bring into our business, we spend an inordinate amount of time understanding their protocols. And then if you're starting to talk about, you've got Europe, you've got GDPR, you've got the UK has got its own systems and guidelines, US has got its own, Australia's got its own. So all these products have to demonstrate that the data is held in that region's proximity predominantly for us. And then it has to have massive capability in de-identifying or actually holding the data. Encryption's pretty well normal now for most things. Another bit that we do now is we do a lot of stuff. We do literally pen testing product. We actually spend a lot of time with our clients in onboarding technology based around their quite often very robust requirements around data and privacy. So some products I may not be of that, but I definitely the ones we know of are very, very good.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Another one. Once you've done the looking at the employee or looking at their job, reporting, is it instant? And if it is instant, does it meet compliance with being able to be a full-on risk assessment as well?
It's a good question. So look, we do 2 things. One, most of the products we look at and that I've shown tonight quickly have automatic outputs, absolutely, and they're really good. And we spend time showing our clients how to use them. If you get a product that has a PDF report as its only output, that can be really helpful if it has the content you want. We look at products that have either an API or a CSV output as well, so that we can look at the data and we can use that data to manage the output for the client. So to me, that's really important to tick that box as far as automatic answers. Quite a lot of our clients want us to rejig the data that comes out so it's pertinent to their need, but most products have an automatic output. The other piece is, to that question, Christian, the amount of work you and we all should do looking at how the data is built. What were the criteria? What were the algorithm methodologies? What was the research? What was the reason for the technology in the first place, or the output? And just make sure that that sits with what you're expecting. And that's a journey, trying to get companies to give you their validation papers that are legitimately external validation, not internal. But if you get that right and you get the reports that work for you automatically, then you're on a winner. So.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was all the questions that are in the chat, James.
Thank you, Christian. I've got a question myself, Mark. How have workers reacted to using your wearables? What are the common concerns and objectives, and how do you handle them?
Yeah, it's really good. So even the camera vision, James, is different because you're not putting wearables on, but it's still an intrusion for some people. I'll give you the answer that I believe is true. First, we find if it's done well, if the company's objective and and culturally with their workforce, it's all good. It actually works super well. Workers get quite engaged, they enjoy it. It nearly ends up being a bit of a rock star event, and we tend to try and make it like that. So it's actually pretty cool. We get the odd time people don't want to be involved, and we get the odd time that people don't want to be seen to be involved, but they'll be involved, so they don't want to be de-identified. We would always say to a company, start with the people that are comfortable, don't push it. Just let it drift into your world and see where it goes. So that's the big piece. But we've got clients that have used single sensors. We've got a client in Australia called Australia Post, and we know that the single sensors quite often end up on the parcels going to other countries. So it's quite complex because they think their workers are drifting all over the place. So everyone's a bit different. But generally, we seem to, if it's done well, people really embrace it.
I've actually got another question that's just come in from Jane Fisher. Have you ever used the wearables in a healthcare setting?
Jane, that sounds like I'm a salesperson, but it sounds like I'm just going to say yes to everything. So that's probably our biggest market in Australia. We do an incredible amount of work in hospitals. One of the big insurers here, EML, have we've just started a project across 9 hospitals doing analysis, and that'll be their housekeeping staff, their nursing, their on-field staff, and so forth. And aged care or assisted living in the US, we do a lot of work. So ironically, our biggest market is aged care and healthcare. We don't target that industry, but it seems to be the one that really jumps all over us, which is really good because we've got a good DNA in that. And I guess it's like a plumber with a leaking faucet. For some reason, healthcare seems to have a lot of stuff to work with, aging workforce and tough environment. It's a hard environment, as you probably know, Jen. So.
Perfect. But thank you very much, Mark. So that concludes today's webinar. I hope you have all found it very useful. You will receive a copy of the recording shortly, as well as a short feedback survey that we will be very grateful for you to complete. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.